Welcome back to Celebrating Senior Shutterbugs. Today, we are continuing our interview with Pulitzer Prize winner David Hume Kennerly. In our last segment, we spoke to David about his experience winning the 1971 Pulitzer Prize for feature photography. Today, we are going to hear about some of the positions he was able to attain, in part due to his Pulitzer achievement. From 1974 to 1977, David was the official White House photographer for President Gerald R. Ford. Of course, this isn't David's only experience as a political photographer, but it is certainly one of his most high-profile roles. Many of his photos from the White House and of leaders and politicians from all over the world can be found in his Rizzoli coffee table book, In the Room, which is scheduled to be released in October of 2026. David, do any thoughts stand out to you when you reflect on your time as the official White House photographer?
It was a privilege. I mean, every day I drove through the gates of the White House and the guards would wave and I would park, right outside the West Wing of the White House. And my office was in the West Wing, just a few steps up to the Oval Office. And I never got over the thrill of it and knowing that it wasn't just, hey, I work in the White House. I mean, it was a major responsibility, but when I walked in that door every day, it was sort of like, I can't believe it. I mean, I've never in my career, and I'm going to be 79 years old coming up in a few weeks. I still have that same enthusiasm, and I still remember this is an amazing opportunity to really have a look at the world that no one gets to see. I lived to photograph historical moments. And from the time I was in, the first newspaper jobs, I realized that's what it was ultimately all about. Getting in the room, photographing behind the scenes of big decisions being made. The White House photographer's job is the ultimate job to that degree. I mean, you are there when decisions are being made to start wars or stop them. In the case of President Ford, who had to end the Vietnam War. So that period for me really was 70s, 80s, 90s, getting into the 2000s, and worked for Newsweek. And I have a lot of really good portraits from that period of the great leaders of the 20th century. And like access you couldn't believe, really. And that was all part of it. But ultimately, it was about my relationship with the Fords, how close it was, that they gave me this opportunity to be in there with them. Ford offered me that job because I'd spent all this time with him as a time photographer when he was vice president. I got to know him and the family. And they liked me, and I liked them, and it was a comfortable relationship. Ford respected the fact that I'd covered the war, I'd been there. I think part of our bond was he had seen combat in World War II, and he understood what that was like. And he wasn't vain, so he was perfect to work for. He wasn't expecting, to be glamorized in some way by him. What he did know about Vietnam and the way I saw things was that I would give him the straight scoop from my opinion about what was going on over there. But I gave him a very personal readout on the whole thing, and he was a very, very humane human. I mean, he was somebody who really cared about other people, and he was in it always to make decisions that weren't just basic, hardcore political decisions, but they were based in a way that you would want somebody to make decisions. How are people going to be impacted by what I do? I mean, he thought about that.
It's surprising to me how down-to-earth even a monumental figure like the president can be when you are as close to them as you were. Especially when considering your role of capturing the effects of important decisions on a personal human level, it sounds like you were perfect for the job. In the next segment, David shares advice, both for those who are just starting out at the craft of photography and for more experienced photographers looking to break into the highly competitive field. He also tells us about some of the things he's been up to, and the cameras that have worked best for him recently. The next segment will be the last in our official interview series with David, but be on the lookout for future bonus segments, such as a history of all the official White House photographers, dating back to the very first, in 1963, during Lyndon B. Johnson's administration.